all 6 aspects of health. That's right. Every week we go over episodes on how to improve your spiritual, social, mental, obviously your financial, your physical, and like today, your intellectual health. Today's episode, we're focusing on how to improve your intellectual health with learning. If you have never seen Millionaires Are Made, this is the show where we believe that every person you meet knows something you don't, and there's something to learn from everyone in this big, beautiful world. We are on a mission here to teach the world how to grow into the healthiest, happiest versions of themselves in all 6 aspects of health. So hopefully this episode can teach you a few tricks on how to improve your intellectual health. So we went out and got 3 awesome guests to give you 3 awesome tips on how to improve your intellectual health with learning. And in the spirit of authenticity, we don't talk about our tips or our knowledge before the show starts. So when our guests tell you their advice, it's going to be our first time hearing them as well. It's going to be exciting. Audience, this is an interactive show, so please comment however you're watching. We will put it live and ask it on air. Real quick, we're going to do a shout out for some of our followers that we love to do with every episode. So if you aren't following us, you can't be shouted out, obviously. On Facebook, we got Robin Wolf, Instagram, Matt and Dina, TikTok, Keep It Blunt. And on YouTube, Let's Talk Ideas. Thank you all so much. Real quick, we're going to go over our sponsors for this episode. We got some awesome ones. So first off, I want to give a shout out to Sarah Jones. Sarah and her husband used to be buried in debt, and they were not so happy in their marriage. Eventually, they wiped clean all their knowledge, relearned, and built a new financial foundation and want to do the same for you. Now they are happy, wealthy, and travel the U.S. in a 75-foot RV and 14 cars behind them and enjoy their lives. Next, we have Parent Win Solutions. Parenting is tough, and no one warned you that half of it feels like guessing. Sounds about right. Parent Win Solutions is the partner that you wish you had on day one. No lesson plans to memorize, no videos to binge, just simple steps that cut stress and help you connect with your child without losing your mind. If you want a calmer home and a guide what actually gets done, go check out Parent Win Solutions. Next, we have Bonnie Hardy. Bonnie is actually one of our favorite guests. First time she was on this show, she was actually homeless and now has a thriving business, all because of Millionaires Are Made, obviously. Just kidding. She owns a women's empowerment coach. She's in Atlanta, Georgia, specializing in mindset, gratitude, and personal development. Bonnie offers a unique approach, combining vision boards with the wheel of life, and manages her own Airbnb that hosts these sessions. Go check out Bonnie right now. And our last sponsor for this episode is the infamous Brian Wright. If you want to write a book, are writing a book, need help publishing it, Brian's the guy. If you want to advertise your brand to high-level entrepreneurs and personal growth leaders, reach out to him. He is the founder and the editor of Ultimate Achievers magazine, where industry icons meet a content-first audience. Definitely go check out Brian. He is fantastic. What else do I have to talk about before we get our guests? First off, that's a huge deal, huge deal. So this is our first 2026. It's like our 3rd episode, something like that. We have our whole guest schedule lined up for the next 6 months. If you want to be a guest, hit us up, comment, check us out. We'd love to have you as a guest. We are also, for the first time, allowing guest hosts. We've had tons of people saying, oh, I want to start a podcast. I don't know how to host or whatever. And actually, our next episode is going to be our first time guest host, Ina. So if you want to watch, that'd be awesome. But if you want to be a guest host, let us know as well. And on that note, we always need topic ideas. We are doing so many episodes. We do 2 every week, and the world is our oyster, but we always run out of topic ideas. If you have something you're struggling with and want us to help you get through, we'll go find 3 guests and give you 3 tips to learn that. We also have launched this year. It's a big year for us, I know. We've launched a couple of things. So we have merchandise. We'll drop that link right now. Awesome shirts, hats, stickers, all that fun stuff if you want to help support positivity and growth. Yeah, there's that little QR code right there. Scan that, grab an awesome shirt, grab a hat, and go help promote the world growing. We also launched our first course. It's been about it's almost been 2.5 years we've been doing this, about 220 episodes, and have hit the top 100 on Apple. And that's pretty awesome. If you want to know how the hell we did it, we're going to tell you. We launched our first course. Shoot a comment or click a link and go check it out and let us know what you think. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, and the final huge ass thing we're doing is Billionaires Are Made. Our next rendition of Millionaires Are Made. We'll be starting this here very soon, where we do one-on-ones with a guest that has already been on Millionaires Are Made that people have been begging to hear more from, and we will share and teach even more in depth of their knowledge. I think that's about it. I think it's time to bring Jeremy out. Let's do it. Jeremy, tell us, who are you?
Hi guys, Jeremy Roadruck, founder, Lead Like a King, men's consultant. I divorce-proof marriages for guys 40 plus who are in business. A lot of complexity, a lot of unpleasantness, and it doesn't have to be that way. So if you're not getting the delight, if you're struggling in a silent marriage, if you're getting the silent treatment, if you feel like a ghost or a guest in your own home, we should probably talk, turn that stuff around fast. I've got some guaranteed solutions, in fact. So yeah, that's me, Kung Fu master, hypnotherapist, like tons of things I've done over the last few years.
Bulletproof marriages. I like that. All right, Jeremy, I've got a very important question for you. If I wanted to improve my intellectual health with learning, what tiny piece of advice would you give me?
I would say think of learning like a barrel of monkeys, because the barrel of monkeys have hooks at the end, they connect together.
Okay, tell me more.
Yeah, so I was waiting for that. So the idea of the barrel of monkeys is this. When you are learning things, you already have a knowledge base inside your head. You already have things that you know. So adding new stuff into it sometimes contradicts. So what you want to do is create those hooks. How is this similar to? How is it kind of like what you already know? And when you do the kind of like, at the same time, you create a different than, or it's not like. And so you create two different attachment points to this new piece of knowledge. It's kind of like this, but it's not, because it's also like that. And now you're creating nodes, because the way our brain works is we have, you have a neuron runs out this way and connects to other neurons. It's a network. And so it's, how do we create connection points? Similar to is a connection point. Different from is also a connection point, because it's not like that. It's, and then we can split hairs. And so that's how you begin to take a mass of knowledge and you begin to add new stuff into it. As you create the hooks for here's what it's kind of like, but you can create another hook to here's what it's not. And so that creates those contrasts. And you begin to start seeing patterns. You begin to start organizing your information for a purpose. That's what we call knowledge. And then the next level is apply it with compassion. We call that wisdom.
All right, very cool. Jeremy, that's great info. Great tip on learning. I like it. Where in your life journey did you learn this advice?
I grew up scattered, and what people say is one thing, what they mean is a second thing, and what they do is a third thing, and maybe they don't relate to each other. And so people were very inconsistent bags of squishy meat. And I had a really hard time understanding, how does this stuff go together? And so I began to start separating out and going, well, this is kind of like this, but it's not. And so it was a lot of lived experience and a lot of cross-contextual, basically research as a kid, going and reading books, history, religion, philosophy, culture, and just absorbing as much as I could. And how does this stuff relate? Because all of human history is made by us as human beings. So what are the commonalities? And that's how we began to start kind of linking it together. And then of course, when I started Kung Fu at 20 and started like teaching is when it like amplified, because I got all these different personalities, learning styles, lived experiences, cultures, races, creeds, philosophies. I got this cauldron of just people to play with, and we're all there to like learn how to stop violence, learn how to get stronger, learn how to defend our lives and the lives of others. That gave me this wonderful place to play and begin to start seeing this. And how can I give somebody this idea they're struggling with? How can I relate it to where they are at and what they already know to get them in motion? Because once they're moving, they're much easier to guide. If you wait till people are motivated, it's kind of like pushing a brick. It takes a while. But if we can get them rolling, it's like, oh, now it's easier to guide. And so that's kind of how I figured it out. Partially lived experience, partially Kung Fu mastery.
Kung Fu, man. Real life examples. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeremy. We're going to move on to our next guest, Ryan. Ryan, tell us, who are you?
My name is Ryan Westfall, father of 4. Been married to my wife here for a couple of decades and loving every minute of it. I'm the founder of 537 BD Business Development, and this is my 9th company. I've traveled around by trade. I'm a mechanical engineer in business, and I've traveled and worked in about 15 different countries, speak a couple of different languages. And so yeah, that's what I'm here.
Man, a hero among men. All right, Ryan. I got a very important question for you. It sounds like you might be the right person to answer it. If I wanted to improve my intellectual health with learning, what tiny piece of advice would you give me?
The piece of advice to increase your learning, your intellectual health, would be to understand that 5% of your actions are actually from your conscious side. 95% of your actions are from your subconscious. So the answer would be to learn how to train your subconscious.
Do you have a little bit of advice on how to do that for us?
Absolutely. So there's one book out there that is written that is the most referred book above any for business, and it's called Think and Grow Rich. Napoleon Hill, he wrote this, and if you do kind of a study on his life, he spent decades researching this and researching some of the most successful people out there. And the aspect that he brought up was this aspect about the thinking, about your subconscious. And there's a gentleman actually alive today. His name is John Mitchell. He did even a deeper study on this. He wrote a book called The Missing Secret. So this is a throw out to him as well. But as you understand that 95% of all your actions are subconscious, and then understanding how to influence that, you'll be better off in influencing your subconscious than you will trying to improve your conscious thoughts, so to speak. And as we do that, I know there's a routine that John has developed. It's about a 12-minute routine every single morning in how you speak to yourself, the goals in which you set for yourself and how you achieve those, how you go about working on those fundamentals have improved tremendously the individuals that actually do this on a regular basis.
And where do we find that 12-minute routine?
That is John Mitchell, and he has a program called Think It, Be It. And he's developed it. He's actually currently working out of the University of Texas, but he has a book called The Missing Secret. And so you can go in there and follow that program and everything there. He works with, very, very, very successful people. He calls the top 2% in the world is what he calls them. And these individuals are people who are focused on, hey, I'm going to train my subconscious. And I can tell you, your next question is, hey, when did I learn this? This was just last year, right? So for me, being aware of this and realizing, okay, all of my learnings and education and coming up in engineering and business and starting all these companies and working in all these different industries and doing private venture equity deals and things of that nature. Last year, as I really started pushing into my coaching and my helping of SMBs and the owners and leaders, that's when I realized there was something more to being able to work with our own minds, with our own thoughts, to actually take ownership of our thoughts. We're often in kind of chaos. We think this, we're always kind of bouncing around, but really being able to influence our subconscious, being able to train intentionally our subconscious, kind of like some of what Jeremy was talking about. Our brains are extremely powerful. And if we learn how to train those in a favorable way, there's just more light bulb moments, more connectivity, more ability to actually achieve the success and the things that we're hoping for in a much faster, more clear avenue.
I love it. So I was going to ask you that question, but you answered it. So we'll wrap this up. We'll move on to our next guest and we'll bring you back out in the round robin. Thank you so much, Ryan. And next up, we have George. George, tell me, who are you?
Hey, Austin. Yeah, happy to be here. My name's George Rivera. I'm a husband, I'm a father of four, and I help cash rich, time poor founders buy back 10 to 20 hours a week or more without
Right.
sacrificing growth by removing themselves as the bottleneck and installing an operating system that can run the whole business without them. And, my edge is that I've lived both sides of this. I've built and I've scaled real businesses with real stakes, $400 million in sales in my 30 plus years online. And I felt the hidden cost, the calendar that owns you, the constant cortisol dopamine loops, the false progress that looks productive, but it's like quietly stealing your life at home. And I drew a line in the sand around what matters most is I'm not building success that my family only hears about. And so my buyback time formula, it's not productivity. It's not, what it is identity level reinvention from heroic operator to present husband and father, from busy to sovereign, from I have to do it to the system does it. So my formula is the formula that turns a founder success from where they're trapped to a life that they actually love to live. And so, yeah, that's what I do.
Awesome. All right. Well, I've got an important question for you. If I wanted to improve my intellectual health by learning, what tiny piece of advice would you give me?
Yeah, I'd say, it's hard to learn when your calendar is completely full of things. And if many of those things are
Mhm.
things you shouldn't be doing, speaking from experience as a business owner, my day was full of things that I could have other people do. So I think prioritizing the things that only you can do as a founder or as a business owner, and like that's where you put your energy and effort in, that creates a lot of clear space for thinking, for reading, for learning more things that maybe you were too busy or too stressed out to do. So yeah, having control of your calendar would be the first thing that I would do. But there's a process in getting there to identify the things that are stealing your time, get that off your plate, control your calendar, and you'll have plenty of time to reduce stress, to learn it in a way that's not coming out of panic or fear or desperation.
Panic, fear, or desperation. Sounds like most young entrepreneurs. All right. Tell me, where on your life journey did you learn this advice?
Yeah, so about 11 years ago, my dad, he had a very successful medical career, but he was very frequently not at my games, not at events in life growing up. And so 11 years ago, he was diagnosed with cancer, only given a few months to live. A couple of weeks before he passed away, he said, "Don't miss Leo's games. I missed too many of yours. Leo's my son." I was already blowing moments with my son, and it gave me a flashback to the years where he wasn't there for my games, and I wondered, was I even important or not? He confirmed that he was, but he wished he could go back in time and redo my childhood. And so at that point, I said, it stops here. So I'm going to find a way to be present for the games and for the moments that matter. And so, yeah, I'm happy to say I never missed any of my son's games. I taught my son how to negotiate real estate at 8 years old. He's got a podcast current day. He just turned 11, had 25 guests before turning 11. So that's just evidence of a present father and the things you can do when you're actually at home and not stuck in the founder prison, as I call it.
Good, good. All right. Well, is Jeremy still with us? Jeremy's still with us. We got a couple minutes, maybe. Let's bring everyone out and start our round robin here. We'll start with Jeremy because we know he loves to talk. Oh, he may not be here.
Yeah, I think he might be gone.
All right. Well, let's start with this then. Ryan, can you refresh what your tip was for us on how to improve your intellectual health by learning?
The tip is to learn to train your subconscious, and tactically hunting. I mean, this is what I work on. Tactically hunting the patterns in our life can expedite that.
All right, George, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, what would be, kind of like the first step in training the subconscious?
in the way that it was taught to me is, one, being able to understand where you're headed, what your goals are, right? We talk about vision boards. Those are kind of a common thing that most people use, but in this case, it's much more detailed. When you lay it out as far as your personal goals, your mental goals, your spiritual goals, your financial goals, there's a lot of those pieces that subconsciously, how we talk to people, for example, using people's first names. So if I'm going to talk to George, hey, I'm going to call George by his name several times. So I'm going to mention George's name several times. There's key powers of influence that when we tell ourselves who we want to become and how we want to act. And we do this over and over and over. It takes, what was it, about 21 days to kind of start creating a habit of something, of changing a behavior. But when you do this for 21 days, 42 days, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, and you're continually modifying what you're telling yourself every single morning. I do this before I get out of bed, even before my workouts, where as I'm training myself and telling myself basically who it is I'm going to be, I have found that my weekly and daily activities are much more on point. I have a lot less distractions in my mind. There's always still the distractions of the world, right? The phone calls, the emails, and all this stuff that come in play. But the distractions in my head have tremendously cleared up as I've started doing this. And my relationships with people are only getting better. So in fact, so much that I've actually got my wife kind of on it, and my children. I've still got 3 at home. And they're still, guiding them how to act in this manner to be able to train their subconscious. And as I was mentioning to you earlier, my daughter, they just won state championship for cheer here in the state of Texas. And we started this here about December for her. And so there was about a 1-month run that even implementing this for her had a huge effect on her own personal calmness, her own ability to be able to perform. And then it had a rippling effect into the team that was, training your subconscious is extremely, extremely powerful.
Nice. Oh,
So let's take the next few minutes and talk about kind of 2 things we brought up, right? So we talked about the physical brain structure of learning with nodes and synapses and all this fun stuff. And then we talked about the subconscious. George, which one you want to take?
I'm definitely fascinated now on the subconscious. It's something that I think we could all put more of an effort and focus in on, because it's so vital to how we perform. But it's just something that I think a lot of people don't think about, or they don't think that they can affect or impact.
So the subconscious is fascinating in psychology, especially with Freud and Jung, who, years ago, there's a lot of controversy with them and a lot of the stuff they did, but they started off a huge school of thought in psychology with the subconscious and the collective unconscious and all this other beyond your thoughts. So, Ryan, tell us a little bit more of how you train your subconscious. So if 95% of your actions and thoughts are subconscious, right? How do we fix that? How do we penetrate that? How do we start working on that outside of the 12-minute routine that you recommended?
Outside of the 12-minute, well, first, I gave you the reference to John Mitchell. He's done a lot more study on this in his book, and every program goes into a lot of that detail. But I will tell you, I know working with my clients where we are tactically hunting patterns, that is a key aspect to learning your own behavior, learning how it is you're acting, not only in business life, but in personal life. So George talked about time and schedule, right? If you're going to own your revenue, if we're speaking business, then you have to own your time. You have to be in control of that. You have to own your thoughts. And your question, Austin, about how is it that we look into our subconscious, it's an unnatural thing. It really is. But the one thing about our subconscious I've learned is it is extremely trusting, right? If you tell your subconscious, hey, the sky is purple, the sky is purple, the sky is purple, and you tell yourself that so frequently, so often, eventually, what is your mind going to start thinking? Your subconscious is going to start thinking that the sky is purple. And you're going to see that purple shade in the morning and the evening, and then you're going to see it basically throughout the entire day. You know the power of your mind if you consistently do something over and over and over consistently. It's kind of like the elite athletes, right? I've always been amazed at elite athletes. Being an athlete myself, it's one of those aspects where when you see a Tom Brady or, something of that nature, where they're sitting there hours before. They're just on the field. They're either sometimes walking the field, they're sitting on the bench. What are they doing? They're rehearsing. They're rehearsing. They're running the plays through their mind. This person does this, I do this. This person does that, I do that. They're running the reactions of everything that they're going to do, all of the study that they've led up to. They are training their subconscious so that when in the heat of the moment, the subconscious is a player that comes out on the field for you, doesn't sit on the bench. You're not relying on something that you haven't trained. Yeah. And so when you have the ability to actually start training your subconscious and taking moments in your days, in your weeks, and actually planning intentionally that training, again, clarity is power. It's power for action. And so when we have that ability to train our subconscious, we run into that clarity. That clarity is power, and we're able to take action steps that otherwise we wouldn't be able to make.
All right, George, how are you going to follow up on that? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Just generally speaking, I know how like our subconscious, like it's always running, whether we're aware of it or not. And if we're not really satisfied with the life that we're living, then just from this discussion, I'm hearing like we have to train our subconscious to point it in the direction that we want to go, so that it's not just reacting on autopilot, which is really just the subconscious doing its thing with the programming that it's had for decades in some cases, and refreshing it. So when you say, Ryan, like you could train your brain or your subconscious to believe that the sky's purple, like, it's almost like you have to like train it for the destination that you want to go to, even if the current one doesn't reflect it. And you're almost like, I don't want to say lying, but you're twisting the truth a little bit so that you can train it to that. Hey, we're not there. We're where we want to be. Eventually the life and the reality catches up to that, because the subconscious is already acting in that direction. Hopefully that makes sense to someone somewhere.
Well, you use the term, George, autopilot, right? That's really what our subconscious is. It's our autopilot, and it affects how we react in our relationships. It affects how we view things. We use the term brainwashed with people, right? Hey, this person was brainwashed to believe X, Y, Z. Well, that's really because they're subconscious. They just naturally believe X, Y, Z because they've been told it over and over and over and over and over again that that's the way they see things. And, our relationships with people, whether we're kind and forgiving, right? This segment is about intellectual health, right? If we believe that learning how to train our subconscious, learning how to be our better selves from who we want to become, and then allowing that intellectual health. I mean, intellectual health is key, paramount key, especially for founders and leaders. If you're not clear with your message, with your tone, with your confidence, that bleeds through. And people can smell that, just like a skunk when you're driving down the road and you hit that moment, and everybody knows what I'm talking about. You're like, oh man, who let it rip, right? And we just know it. We can see that. We can sense it. And so absolutely, if we're not doing that, and again, I'm preaching from the aspect where I just started learning the power of this last year. And all these things I've done in my life, and trying to improve my own intellectual health, my own learning, right? I've got people I'm responsible to, I'm accountable to, right? I've got businesses that got 100 employees and $50 million a year, and I have to help them progress. Well, I've got to be progressing myself. How do I do that? And so absolutely 100%, I believe training the subconscious is a tool, is a key that at least for me was going unchecked for many, many, many years.
All right, guys, we got to wrap this up, and there's one last task we have to do. We must come up with our daily challenge. This is a task or series of tasks that takes less than 5 minutes a day that can help us improve our intellectual health with learning. What ideas do you guys have?
Well, yeah, I'll just briefly go here first. So yeah, my suggestion was to clear the calendar, and usually it's a bit of a longer formal process, but since we're trying to keep it to 5 minutes, likely whoever's listening who's like, I love the idea of clearing your calendar. Well, you likely already know there's a number of things that you're doing in your business that you shouldn't be doing. You probably don't need to audit your time to like figure what that out, what that is. You need to audit your time to like get all of it out. But there's, like I said, 2 or 3 things that everybody's doing that they're like, I know I shouldn't be doing this. So find a way to get that off of your plate so that you can, buy back that time on your calendar to then utilize that time to free up space for learning. So that would be my thing, is jot down 2 to 3 things that you know that you shouldn't be doing, and then get it off your plate. With AI these days, it's easier than ever to just state, this is what I'm doing. Help me delegate this, or it could either be eliminated, could be automated, could be delegated. Figure out which one that those things fall under, and get it off your plate as fast as possible. And don't just use that time to take on more things, because that's one thing that people tend to do. Don't ask me how I know, but focus on making that time for learning.
All right, so for you, I've got delete one thing every day from your work calendar.
That'll do it. And you already
So
know.
even if you're not an entrepreneur, if you're not an entrepreneur, you don't have a business or whatever. Figure out something. Tell your boss you have to delete this meeting because you have to go learn.
Yeah, exactly. And they'll appreciate you for that, because be more efficient.
Yeah, there's a good argument. Ryan, anything you want to add before we wrap this up?
I'm going to piggyback off of George right here. If you can see it, I wrote here a little while ago about the difference between a digital calendar and a paper calendar. I've oscillated between the two for many, many different times. They both have their pros and cons, but if I were to pick one, it would be the written calendar. Every week I write down, and here's the takeaway, is to that day, I do it for the week, and I also do it for every single day. I write down 3 things that I'm going to accomplish. I'm going to do 3 things that move the needle, right? And regardless, come hell or high water, whatever it is that day, those are the 3 things I'm focused on. If I don't get other things done, that's fine. But these are the 3 things I focus on. And as I follow that system every day, these are the 3 things. These are my top 3, and just focus on getting those 3 things done, then that's when results start to multiply and compound on each other. So great take, George.
Yeah, love that, Ryan.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, we got our daily challenge. We've come what we got to do. So I'm going to put y'all backstage and wrap this up. Thank you so much for coming out. And thank you guys for watching another episode of Millionaires Are Made. We learned a lot about the unconscious and subconscious, actually, and how to learn and make decisions. I learned a little bit of how the brain works with dendrites and synapses and all that fun stuff. It's basically just a giant, oh man, how many neurons do we have? Like billions, if not trillions, tiny little cells up here that all spark along how to learn and what to do. And so when you learn, you're actually rewiring them to shoot their little messages differently. It's fascinating. We kind of have 2 sides of psychology. There's the biological side, and then there's the theory side with Jung and Freud and all their subconscious beliefs. Man, we could have done this episode for a long time. It spurred a couple of doing learning, some type of learning in the future, because we got some more to go on this. Never forget, and hopefully you guys had a great time, but never forget that millionaires